I don't feel like I need to talk up this game too much, but I'm gonna go ahead and do it anyway because Metroid Dread is the first 2D Metroid game in well over a decade that isn't a remake or a fan game. And through it all, the hype, the anti-hype from the Sony $60 versus Nintendo $60 crowd that I hate with every fiber of my being, and every article from Kotaku that you can appropriately fit every hyphenated form of the word ill to it, Metroid Dread is already breaking lifetime sales records for the series, so hopefully that means Nintendo will go ahead and release more of these games moving forward and not blue ball us for decades to come, which I know isn't gonna happen, but a man can dream. Shut up. That said, I already went ahead and played through the game like 3 times already, so I figured now it's a good time for me to break it down. So without further ado, here is my review for Metroid Dread on the Nintendo Switch. This game follows the events of Metroid Fusion. In that game, Samus faced the repercussions of going full Metroid genocide in previous titles in the form of the X-Parasites. The X were the natural prey of the Metroids and arguably posed a similar if not greater threat due to their ability to assimilate and mimic any living being they infected, exemplified by the SA-X, an X that infected Samus and mimicked her at full strength while leaving Samus as good as dead if it weren't for the invention of a vaccine to the X-Parasite based in Metroid DNA. It saved her life while giving her the benefit of becoming immune to the X-Parasites. She uses this ability to exterminate the X-Parasites and the world of SR-388, leaving the Metroids and the X a distant memory. Or so we thought. Sometime later, an anonymous video was sent to the Galactic Federation showing an X-Parasite out in the wild on a planet called ZDR. The video is confirmed to be real, so originally, the Federation sends out 7 EMI robots, surveillance drones that are used for DNA collection and made nearly indestructible, to investigate until they lose touch with them. And so Samus, being the only one able to stand against the X, then takes on the mission to investigate ZDR herself, once more aided by her AI companion Adam. After arriving and traveling to the depths of ZDR, she runs into someone. And spoilers if you don't know too much about Metroid lore, but that's a fucking Chozo. You know, the ones who raised Samus after her parents were killed, the ones who created her power suit, the ones who implanted their DNA inside her. Yeah, one of those. And shockingly, this Chozo immediately tries to murder her. After a short but impressive display, Samus is put on the back foot and seemingly about to die when the screen flashes and she wakes up missing much of her abilities and her suit brought back to its basic blue form. What happened is a mystery, but it's here where you take control of Samus, and it's soon made clear that Samus was baited into coming here. But why? This, combined with her mission to investigate the presence of the X, while also being instructed to get back to the surface of ZDR to escape this trap, all the while deducing the as of yet unclear objectives of this mysterious Chozo warrior become her focus. Also, the Emmys have been hacked and are hunting to capture her before she can escape. All of these things come together to form a cocktail of, wait for it, dread, as Samus fights to complete her mission while ensuring her survival in this situation. Much of the story afterward is handled in typical Metroid fashion, as a fair amount of it is told in the background, supplemented by exposition from time to time via Adam in the game's numerous network terminals. There's a bit more in between as opposed to other Metroid games with cutscenes dotted across the journey, but the journey is just as enjoyable as any 2D Metroid game has ever been, if not more in this instance. For more reasons than the story, obviously. As I stated, this is a 2D Metroid game, and as such, the people on the side going, I only really like Metroid Prime, it's okay, you'll have your day. Relax. The rest of us, however, are eating right now, so stop moaning in front of my salad, okay? Okay, Dread, being the second game in the series developed by Mercury Steam, is definitely their most polished effort to date. It's just as Metroidvania as it's ever been. However, the game makes a bit of an effort to discourage backtracking in the early game up until around the midpoint. They've also made an effort to increase the flow of combat from their work in the Samus Returns remake, where they added 360-degree aiming and a melee counter. The only downside to the melee counter used to be that it killed your momentum in the past, requiring stopping in full place to pull it off. But in Dread, they added the ability to do it in motion, keeping your momentum and feeling more badass to pull off because it just looks so cool. They also added a slide mechanic, which is dope, and it keeps you moving quickly through small gaps. But I feel they started trying to get a little cute with showing it off because it takes longer than any other Metroid game to get the Morph Ball, which is usually one of her first upgrades. In your first playthrough, you won't see it for the first couple of hours. Though when you do get it, the slide still remains a viable option for crawl spaces, as a slide sees you switch into the Morph Ball seamlessly. There's big emphasis on momentum in this game, and I really get absorbed in how smoothly I can travel through the game world. There's also a minor change to a classic ability, as the Spider Ball is now the Spider Magnet, seeing Samus climbing up the magnet paths instead of rolling up them. It's still just as slow, but with the bonus of Samus being able to shoot and counter while climbing, which more than makes up for it. The boss fights are all satisfyingly challenged too, feeling both classic but fresh, in that you're given opportunities to use the counters to initiate cinematic moments where Samus just starts openly disrespecting all of her enemies, and I love every second of it. Naturally, as you progress, you start to feel appropriately overpowered, but the game offers plenty of mini bosses and such that test your skills, but none as much as the Emmys. See, these things are impervious to literally all of Samus's weaponry, and so the only thing you can do is avoid them using Samus's Aeon abilities, such as the Phantom Cloak or a dash, along with your quick navigation and reflexes. They're only able to travel in certain areas highlighted by different doors, and once you enter their territory, dealing with them comes across every bit as intense as the SAX sections from Fusion. The only thing you can do if you get caught is counter them to stun them so you can create some distance, but the timing of the counter is insanely precise, and failing to pull it off results in but eventually you come upon these baby mother brain control centers. Take them out and you can use their energy to supercharge your arm cannon, which gives you the opportunity to destroy the enemies and gain more abilities from them. Overall, the game is definitely challenging, and completing the game gives you the hard mode, which is basically fusion mode for the hardcore fans. My first playthrough took me under 8 hours, which extended to about 12 when I went for 100% completion and item collection. With the experience I gained from that, hard mode took me about an hour less, and I'm shooting for better times for personal satisfaction. And like the classics, alternate endings are dependent on clear time alone, not item completion. It's a very satisfying experience overall, although as I said, I found it odd how long they put off getting the Morph Ball, which artificially extended the game by cutting off backtrack routes early, coupled with the adjustment of it and the slide being tied to the same button, which created awkward moments where I was trying to Morph Ball bomb a block and ended up sliding by accident, and on the flip side, stopping in my tracks by going into the ball when I was trying to hit a slide. But these aren't persistent issues, just something I did here and there that softly annoyed me. The other weird choice to me was making the speed booster a button press now. That used to be something that just worked. You used to just run and it would activate if you went long enough without interruption. It's not a terrible change, but tying it to the press of the left analog stick just took getting used to, and it made the timing of certain Shine Spark puzzles really frustrating. Still, these are minor inconveniences to the hardcore, but I wanted to address them. The game is incredibly enjoyable throughout, with snappy and responsive controls to boot. Dread is a visually impressive game on the Switch. It runs a mostly consistent 60 frames per second on the console, although I can hear my Switch in the background trying to keep up, to which I say no, I am not buying the OLED model, Nintendo. There's some little dips here and there during boss fights and some sections with lots of tiny enemies on the screen, but still pretty solid throughout. All of the cutscenes are at 30 frames though to balance it out, and where the beginning of the game is done in a slideshow fashion with text, the rest of the game after features fully animated cutscenes with lots of angles, lots of close-ups of Samus's face to show her expressions during some moments, all very cinematic stuff. The environments of the game are all pretty detailed, and there's a fair amount of enemy variety, lots of indigenous species and robots and such. The music is strong stuff too, lots of atmospheric pieces and more industrial sounding ones in the more mechanical areas, and plenty of intense music during boss fights. A personal favorite of mine is, spoilers, seriously, if you don't want to get spoiled on any of the boss fights, you might want to just skip to this part of the video, Kraid's boss fight music, feeling equal parts ominous and classic. Great stuff overall, and perfectly complementing the tone of the game, I'd say. Samus's suit is also really cool, although it's not something that comes with an explanation. I brought this up a couple of times when I streamed the game, and it was brought to my attention that Nintendo explained in a tweet that the new suit is a result of Samus's suit from Fusion slowly regenerating her mechanical suit look, which is a perfectly fine explanation. It's just, why the fuck is that not in the game? Again, it's a perfectly fine explanation, I believe. I don't have an issue with it at all. It's a plausible explanation. I just have a bit of an issue with this explanation that fits in the limits of a tweet being completely absent in the game. And it's not even alluded to or referenced in any kind of way. That's mostly as a personal preference, because I have a huge issue with having to rely on external sources to flesh out simple concepts or story elements. I had this issue with games like Devil May Cry 5 too, and I guess I can blame shitty games like Destiny for that. argue with yourself on that one. The suit thing seems minor, and admittedly it is, but these kinds of things have an explanation in every other game, down to the arbitrary reasons that Samus loses her powers in every game, whereas in this game it's chalked up to physical amnesia. What?
You might call it physical amnesia.
I guess these are just byproducts of trying to tell a more involved story, where this series usually has equal strength in implicit storytelling, where the things that are explicitly told to you make some form of sense without much effort. It detracts from the overall presentation, I believe, but what we have is still a strong showing. Samus gets a lot of room to breathe in this one, down to the way she animates in-game and during scenes. Samus doesn't usually have other characters to bounce off of, so she usually comes off as stoic and reserved. And while that can certainly be the case, there's these little bits of character acting in scenes where she often greets whoever she runs into with her guard up, ready to retaliate. And in boss fights, there's this strong sense of confidence she exudes, and it speaks volumes given that she can't exactly communicate with all the random space animals. She wears her experience on her sleeves in this, and I honestly prefer it that way. Metroid Dread is a fantastic adventure overall, and one that the legendary bounty hunter deserved to push forward her story in ways both interesting and awesome. Here's hoping the successes of this game push the envelope enough to ensure continued entries in the series for years to come after the eventual release of Prime 4. And thanks for watching this video to the end if you did. I personally was very glad to get down to brass tacks and break down this game, because personally it's already sitting in my running for Game of the Year for 2021. Whether you agree or disagree with me, you can let me know that one in the comments. I've already gotten into a few conversations regarding this game, and what's a few more gonna hurt? But as for now, that's where we're gonna end today's video. So thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you on the next one.